This week on Dad Chat, we're talking about 4-day work weeks, and we're introducing a brand new segment, our Parent of the Week. Hit the intro, and let's go.
Just want to finish these chats with Dad. Dad, I just want to chat with you some more.
Welcome to another episode of Dad Chat.
Dad stuff, okay?
For everything dads need to know about business, life, news, and doing everything they need to do to take over the world.
Take over the world.
And still get home in time for dinner.
Time for dinner, sweetie.
With your hosts, Greg Roulette and Matthew Goldfarb.
All right, welcome back to Dad Chat. It's time for some Dad Chatting this week. Matthew, how are you, my friend?
I am good. I praying to the health gods. I got my flu shot yesterday, and I'm hoping that, you know, it's just a quick thing and there's no flu that comes this year. I got it last year and it kicked my ass. Other than that, I am great.
That sounds terrible to get the flu right now. I've been all over the place lately. Was just in Phoenix for a few days, home for a few days this week, and cool thing, and you and I have both been talking about this offline, is that people are talking about the Dad Chatting. They are getting interested in some of the topics and the articles and having their own discussions. I've been having these conversations at dinner now and bringing up some of the things. And where we're going to kick off today's episode is a little bit of a follow-up on last week's episode where we started talking about the Tooth Fairy. And it was a really cool story. If you didn't see it or listen to it, go back and listen to episode 9, where we talked about a kid who... Episode 8. Oh, man. 2 episodes ago.
Yeah, man.
Where we were talking about the Tooth Fairy, and this kid lost his tooth, lost it at school, and the principal or whoever it was had to write a note to the Tooth Fairy. And Matt and I started talking about, well, what is the going rate for the Tooth Fairy? And there are some debates out there, because as a kid growing up, like if I got $1, it was good. But it shows now that after surveying 35,000 people, the average kid gets $4.90 every time they lose a tooth. That adds up to about $100 that they will collect from the Tooth Fairy as they lose 20 baby teeth. What do you think about it? $5. Is that the going rate today for a tooth? What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, what I said back then was I kind of screwed myself, because when Nate lost a tooth one time, I didn't have any singles on me, and so I only had a $5 bill. It might have even been a $10 bill. So I kind of got screwed, because now, you know, in his mind, that's what it is. So $5 sounds about right. You know, the tooth inflation is a little crazy. So yeah, I mean, for me, I've only got the one. It's going to add up. But the one thing in here, it said pink. And last week we talked about her husband, Corey Hart. She gave her kid $100 for a single tooth. Now, I'm definitely not going to be going there that way.
Got it, man. And, you know, I haven't had any kids lose any teeth yet, but I think probably $5 a tooth. But I remember what you said last time about setting the precedent, that you don't want to set a precedent of, you know, $20. Now they're expecting $20 every time. So you might start out with $1 and then escalate up. But, you know, $1 to $5. What do you think? How much do you think the going rate for the Tooth Fairy is? I know this is hard hitting journalism right here this week to kick off on
These are the issues that people want to hear about.
You know, but you know what's funny is, like, I bet there's a bunch of dads who, like, I have no idea how much to give my kids when they lose a tooth. So this is hard hitting journalism right here. You heard it here first on Dad Chat. All right, let's talk about something again, just kind of funny, little lighthearted to start off today's episode. I want to talk about this article that you found from Parents. I think it's like Parents Magazine, and it's 18 illegal baby names you might want to keep off your list. So I know I'm done having kids. I know you're done, at least for the present moment, unless you got some baby mama drama that I don't know about. As far as naming new kids.
Anything is possible.
Anything is possible. But this list has some really funny names that are illegal in different countries. And hopefully you're not naming your kid Adolph, but that is an illegal name worldwide. Like, you can't legally name your kid Adolph. Now, again, I don't think that you should want to, but it's actually illegal. There's other weird things, like Nutella is illegal in France. Robocop is illegal in Mexico. Like, this is kind of great. And this is one. So Osama bin Laden is on this list, and it's only illegal right now in Germany. This is nuts. Like, what do you think of this list?
It's hysterical. I mean, it's funny, like, in a lot of ways. Like, some of them seem obvious, right? Like, no one, I don't think at this point, is going to name their kid Adolf. I think in China, you can't use the @ symbol I mean, some of these names are so ridiculous that I can't imagine a person would ever do it. But I don't know. This stuff just makes me crack up. My favorite is in New Zealand. You can't name your child Sex Fruit.
And in the good state of Ohio, shout out to all our listeners in Ohio. If you're thinking about having a baby, you can't name him Santa Claus. A judge said that is illegal.
Yeah, that would make sense. I mean, think of all the confusion on the playground.
Again, hard-hitting journalism here to start this episode of Dad Chat. But the crazy list, we'll send you the names because this is a little party trick for you guys as you're listening. But, obviously naming a kid is a big deal. You're trying to think of all kinds of things from family names to making sure that your kids don't get picked on. I know when we did it, we tried to think of all the nicknames that might come up for a name. And, starting your kid off, kids in social situations and going to school, it's hard enough as a kid, right? You don't put them in a position to where the name is going to help the children, have any extra ammunition on your kids. And a name, it's a big deal. That is your name. And if you're thinking of naming your kid any name on this list, you're probably not listening to this show. That's for sure.
Definitely not. And look, I grew up with Goldfarb, and that was traumatic enough. And so I'm waiting for Nate to come home crying one day when kids start doing that. And I'm not going to tell you, but if you're smart enough, you could think about what the directions you can go with that one.
All right, moving on. Let's talk about an article from Business Insider, and I thought this one was cool. This one popped up on my Facebook feeds numerous times over the past week, and it's a new survey that just came out. And the headline, obviously, what captured our attention, says American kids want to be famous on YouTube, and kids in China want to go to space. And without even reading the article, just reading the headline, I would say that that's probably pretty accurate. When you got kids like Ryan making $20 million unboxing toys, and everyone that, kids, teens, tweens, young adults are following, they're following YouTube stars. These are the new celebrities. And I don't think this is really any different than them wanting to be movie stars, actors, or athletes during our generation growing up. I think that to them, the actors, athletes, musicians, entertainers that they aspire to be they're on YouTube. They're YouTube stars. But I guess what's sad is the Chinese actually want fulfilling careers that are changing the world instead of just entertaining us. But I don't think that I don't really think there's anything wrong with people wanting to be YouTube stars, any different than how I wanted to be an athlete when I was growing up. What was your take on this study?
I think it's interesting. So for us, or I'll speak for me, because this is not something we grew up with, it seems frivolous to me. Why would you want to be a YouTube star? It doesn't feel, like you said, kind of a real profession. But, when people make so much money being there, and it's a way that people get out there, and YouTube being so present, I think it makes sense. I get nervous, obviously, because Nate wants to do this whole thing. He wants to do those Minecraft videos where we film him playing and then talking because he watches these guys. And the only thing that makes me nervous about it, and my same issue with social media, is that people are so mean and relentless and just want to come and attack that I would just get nervous about putting a 7-year-old on YouTube for the fact of what happens if people don't like it. And I don't want him to kind of put his self-esteem in his numbers of likes or people responding to it. So I'm kind of a mixed bag. Every time he's asked me to do this, I've kind of just put it off. But I think it makes sense. But for me, from my generation, it does feel like a sad place to be I want to grow up and be a YouTube star, not I want to grow up and be a doctor, or I want to come up and be a scientist. And it may just be where we grew up. But to me, it does feel different than, like you said, wanting to be an athlete. But that might also be because that's what we grew up with.
As I was continuing to look into the study and things like that, it was done between 3,000 kids ages 8 to 12 from the US, the UK, and China. So that's where they got the data from. So obviously this isn't 3 million kids who have gone through this survey. It's a small sample size. But as I look back, when I was 8 to 12, even though it's admirable to want to be a doctor or a lawyer, an astronaut, or whatever it is, that's not what kids want. The far majority of kids aren't thinking man, I can't wait to go to medical school for 8 to 10 years of my life, especially at 8, 9, 10 years old. They want to be, princesses and astronauts and musicians and these kinds of things. So the other interesting thing with this survey that skews the data a little bit is the only 5 choices were YouTuber, teacher, athlete, musician, and astronaut. So it's not like they just filled in a blank of what they want to be. They had 5 choices. And out of the 5 choices, yeah, the sexiest one to that age demographic would be a vlogger and a YouTuber. Again, that is their form of entertainment. You know, my kids, the first thing they do, like they watch YouTube videos on their iPads more so than going to regular TV or Netflix or any of these things. So I totally see that. Now, the interesting thing across all 3,000 kids in all 3 countries is that the number 2 choice was teacher. I think that's pretty cool that people are thinking about, you know, and I guess it could also be a product of the fact that they go to school all day, every day, and they know teachers probably more than any other profession. But I think that says something that teacher is second on this list, above professional athlete in all 3 places, above musician in all 3 places. So that's kind of maybe a good sign out of all of this.
Yeah, I think it's a great sign. And, you know, one of the things that would be lovely to see is in an ideal world, the professions that have the biggest impact and make the biggest difference would be the most financially rewarded. So, you know, I look at my kids' teachers and they work their butts off. And, you know, teaching kindergartners and first graders is such a hard job. And you would just wish that teachers would be compensated. And I think if we had a society or a world that did that, I think being a teacher would be so much more interesting to people and so much more something they'd want to do. But I am with you. I agree with you that it's a great thing that, at least for now, they see the value of it and something that they could aspire to be, and that they're looking positively on the people who are educating them.
So tonight might be a good time to go and ask your kids, like, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? And see their answers. I think it might surprise you, but also, I don't think being a YouTuber is necessarily a bad thing. I think it's just their version of what we wanted to be when we grew up. So really cool article. We'll make sure we share the link in the show notes so you guys can go check out that survey as well. All right, next one that I have for you. This one, Matt, I'm going to look at your advice from it. It comes from Today, and it's how stay-at-home dads are finding their tribe. No, they're not babysitting. They're finding support, camaraderie, and more through the National At-Home Dad Network. So before maybe even we talk about this National At-Home Dad Network and Home Dad Con that they're throwing, do you find it difficult to meet other dads, whether they're single dads or married dad? Like, are you lonely, Matt? Are you lonely out there? Is it difficult for you?
I have nowhere else to go. You know, it's funny. When I was younger, I remember my ex's dad would always tell me how hard it is when you get older to make male friends. And as you get older, you just don't make a lot of friends because you kind of crystallize who you are and you become a lot more almost like a loner. And I'll say this, when I moved here back to Mass about 10 years ago, when I left New York, I had, 3 dozen, a million best friends. And when I came here for a while, I didn't have a lot of friends. And so I definitely felt alone. I felt like I didn't really have people to commiserate with. It's only been in the last couple of years since Nate has started going to school that I've actually put more of an effort into making other friends. And I do think, and I don't know, I'll speak from the male perspective. I do think it is harder as you get older to not only find male friends, but to find male friends that you can actually talk to and they can be real and talk about your fears or your problems that you're dealing with. Which is why something like this was really intriguing to me, because I think there is such a stigma and people are so isolated. So to answer your question, I have a few friends. I definitely have a couple. But it is definitely lonely. It's definitely an interesting phenomenon that if you don't have, say, like your childhood friends or your college friends nearby, making friends and feeling like you have people to go do things with and commiserate with and talk things through, it doesn't feel as though there are as many outlets as I would like there to be. What about you?
I find it incredibly difficult to find close relationships with other guys. I find that it's easy enough to, like, I coach Little League. So yes, I'm buddies with all the other coaches, right? But none of them that I would call to have over on a Friday night for drinks and to watch the game and have those deeper conversations with, right? And it's not nothing against who they are. It's just, again, just creating those relationships is difficult, especially as you get older. And then also, like, your time constraints. Like, I'm not going to happy hour, right? Like, I'm putting kids to bed and doing bath time and dinner time and all the craziness. So, if I want to go out and, have some drinks, it's going to be at 9, 10 o'clock at night. And by 9, 10 o'clock at night, that's probably the last thing that I want to do. So there is kind of this loner mentality thing that it is difficult to make those relationships. I am not sure that I would go to something like, single dad con or home dad con and not, I might not be their target market, but I'm not sure that that's where I would go to try to meet people. I think it's, again, goes back to stuff that we continue to talk about here on the podcast. It's finding those activities both with your kids and by yourself that, like me going to the gym, like that's where I found some great relationships, at, 6 a.m. CrossFit class, because those people, you're going to war together and you're trying to have a common goal of getting in shape and, those kinds of things. Like those people I would go have a beer with and go have those conversations with. Things like archery, things like the weird hobbies and habits that I have, I think are a better place for me to find those like-minded people that I might have that deeper relationship with than a forced networking event at home DadCon or, the National At Home Dad Network. And again, I'm not faulting these people because I think, this is necessary, just like dating apps are necessary, just like, some of these ways to connect are necessary. For me, I don't find that I would use this kind of thing to create that relationship. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. But at the same time, I think for these guys, especially like, aside from even the stigma of being a stay-at-home dad, you might feel isolated too if so many of your friends or the people that are the breadwinner or are full-time workers, and you're kind of in this world by yourself. So I think finding community where you find it is awesome. But I think you bring up very good points, and I don't think archery is weird, Greg.
I don't think it's weird either, but some people are like, what do you like? Because I also don't hunt. So I'm not like a hunter per se. I actually just enjoy archery, me, for the simple fact that I think it's like how a lot of people play golf. They get to kind of be present in the moment, get away, but I don't have 4 hours to get away. It's just not baked into my life and my schedule. If my wife knew I was on the golf course for 4 hours instead of coming home to like be with the kids, I would be a dead man. So I think that archery for me has been that 30 to 45 minute release. I can go to the range and it's kind of like meditation. I can just be there. I can be one with like the target, because if you're not focused on the target, you're going to miss it completely. And so it's kind of that meditation, getaway, stillness of my mind that I really enjoy. And so that's why I'm into it. I know you didn't really ask me about why I do archery. You just said it wasn't weird, but I felt like I had to explain myself, which is weird because I shouldn't have to, explain myself, but I did anyway.
But I appreciate that you did, and it's good to know that it's you're not out trying to hunt quail or rabbit. So, all right.
Moving on. All right. Business Insider back again right now. I want to talk about this article. This has been going around the internet like wildfire, especially in the productivity and the business space and the entrepreneur space. It's that Microsoft experimented with a 4-day work week and productivity jumped by 40%. And this was done, I think it was done it was done in a Microsoft subsidiary in Japan. So obviously a small test group. And also, like, what do Microsoft employees in Japan even do, right? Like, are they really mission critical to the business? But regardless, they went to a 4-day work week and they saw productivity. And I don't know how you necessarily measure productivity, but Microsoft has Microsoft Excel, so they probably have a way to measure it. Increased by 39.9%. If August to August. It's interesting. And it's interesting, I think, in a bigger debate of, there's a lot of this, like worker economy, this gig economy where people are just kind of picking up and say, all right, I want to drive some people around for a couple hours, right? There's no set schedule. There's a lot of remote working going on. There's a lot of freelancers. There's a lot of service-based businesses. Like even we hire a ton of contractors, freelancers who don't technically work for us. And then we also have people in the office who I know I'm paying right now as I'm recording this, and they're probably playing around on Facebook and I'm paying them to do that. So by condensing your work week into 4 days instead of 5 days, you might actually get more done because you have less time with which to hit all of your KPIs or get all of your projects done. Or it just could be 4 days that you're still just playing on Facebook and watching YouTube videos. I don't know, man. Like when you hear about something like a 4-day work week, like, is this something that can actually work? Is it just a farce? Is it a great headline? are the Japanese just way more disciplined than we are? So it worked for them, but it'll never work for us. What do you think, man?
I think it's awesome. I mean, I've heard, there's this kind of thing like, so say you're going on vacation, right, for a week. And so, there's always these stories anecdotally about people who in the week before they go on vacation, they are 10 times more productive than a normal work week because that your time is limited. And we were even talking before we recorded about, say, my day where I have, 2 or 3 big projects and, I have about 6 hours to get them all done before I have to go get my kid. And, having less time does cause you to focus. I think there is something to be said. I think it was our boy, Dan Kennedy, who said, or maybe it was John Carlton, but it was something about, the greatest invention in the world is a deadline. So on one end, I do think having less time can yield more productivity. But on the flip side, the thing that I really like is the fact that the world is definitely shifting to this work-life balance where people don't want to feel like everything they do is just about work and they can't even enjoy their lives. And I think the ability to give somebody a 4-day work week, to be able to have an extra day to recoup, take care of themselves, take care of the things that they need to do, not be exhausted all the time. I think that actually brings a more positive attitude to the way that you show up at work. And you don't feel like your life is just your job. So for me, I think this is great. And I've always said, I think one of the big challenges for the work that we do as entrepreneurs and sometimes getting hired by clients for contract work is sometimes when I get a project, it's either, do you want to get paid a flat rate or do you want to get paid by the hour? And to me, the value of what I have to offer is not in the amount of time it takes, it's in the amount of talent and skill that I bring to it. And so if in 1 hour I can bring you $10,000 worth of value versus 10 hours at, $100 an hour, to me, it's more important about what you're bringing than the amount of time you get there. So I think I could definitely see the world shifting in this direction. And I'm behind it.
I'm behind it too, in the fact that I think now it puts pressure on employees to deliver what they need to do and get it done in a time frame that is beneficial to the company, that's beneficial to the customers, clients, people that the company services. And it's also, I think, good for the mental health of the employees themselves to now have that extra day to be with their families, to get more done. I say this to my business partners all the time. I'm like, I don't know how a normal person working a 9 to 5 that has their 2 weeks of vacation gets anything done because, like yesterday, there was a field trip. Jen was a chaperone. We have a baby. We have 2 kids in 2 different schools to get to. My car is in the shop. Therefore, my car seats are in the shop. So I have a loaner car and I don't have any, I know it sounds like I'm complaining about these little things, but the operational logistics of running a family while running a business are incredibly difficult. And so to have that extra day in the week to go to the bank, to go to the mechanic, to go get groceries, to do all the crap that comes with life makes a whole lot of sense. And I think it'll make your employees feel less pressure. Now, that is in a logical world. In a realistic world, they're just going to use that extra day to fart around and they're still not going to have enough time during the week to go to the bank and go get the groceries and go do the things that they want to do. That's just human nature. But I do think having those condensed deadlines really are helpful. And the article also said that they consume less power. They printed less paper. The lights were off more. There was so many offshoots and benefits to, being shut down an extra day every single week. This is really, really cool. And the other side of it is this doesn't obviously work for all industries and all jobs. The doctor's office can't only be open 4 days a week because if I'm sick, I need to get in today. The mechanic for your car, maybe you could get away with it, but realistically, you got to be open so that we can bring things in there. But I think in a lot of these jobs where you're sitting behind a desk and customer service, where you are, a company like Microsoft or Apple or Google, there is no reason for them to be there 5 days a week. And I think that there's so many benefits that come from that. And I'm glad that these companies like Microsoft are doing these experiments to, really see what works. And the cool thing is some of these experiments are going to work. Some of them are not going to work. I remember, I think it was Google that had the open office and the open desks and all of that. And when it first came out, it was this is revolutionizing the workforce. And then they came back a few years later and this was awful. This was a really bad idea because no one works. They just talk to each other. And so then they went back to a more traditional workspace. But I'm glad that these companies that have the big budgets who are able to test these things can test them and see how they affect society and mental health and productivity and profits and all the things that matter to us as business owners.
One last question on this. So for you, with people that you work with, if you say got to a place where you did do a 4-day work week, would that impact how much you would want to pay them? Or is it, is it still, would you still imagine the same amount of salary or the same amount of work? And also, I guess the other question is how important is like the FaceTime aspect? Because I've worked at places where, you have to be there from 9 to 5, even if you're done with your day at 3. And to me, it seems like a waste of time for everyone's place. But I'm curious, like, would that impact how you would figure out a salary for somebody?
So from a pay perspective, very similar to what you said, is I really pay on value versus task per hour kind of deal. Now, that's how it obviously works out on their pay stub and things like that. But like, I value your job and the things that you do and the tasks that you have and the metrics that you're going to hit at this agreed upon rate. And whether you get that done in 2 days or 5 days doesn't matter to me. That's what those tasks are worth to me as a company. So no, I don't necessarily think that you pay someone less because they're working that. I think everything should be around value-based pricing, right? If I'm getting value out of paying you X and I get Y productivity from you, which helps me to grow my business, I don't care that you're in 4 days versus 5 days. So that's my mentality on that. My other side, and I go back and forth on this every single time that we have discussions about this, of having people in the office versus remote workers versus freelancers and contractors. There is something about having someone in the office that you can go walk over to, go to their desk and be like, what the hell is going on? Fix this or get this done, or I need this now, or the collaborative effect of, hey, let's look at this together and let's find a solution to it, that I don't think you get with freelance and remote workers. Because I might be like, Matt, I need you to look at this right now. And you're like, nah, I'm on the beach right now. I don't work till 10 o'clock tonight, and there's something that you miss from a collaboration standpoint by not having that FaceTime. So
yeah. And I think it does come down to the type of people that you bring into your organization and who an individual is. So if you can trust somebody that's going to be available, and when they're on a project being like, I'm here for you, just reach out to me and we have an agreement, it works. But if someone who's a slacker is going to be a slacker. So that totally makes sense.
Yeah. So what do you think? Could you ever go to getting your employees on a 4-hour or a 4-day work week? Not Tim Ferriss, not a 4-hour work week, a 4-day work week. I am not ready to go to 4 hours anytime soon. So what do you think? Are you ready to go to a 4-day work week? Is that something you would ever entertain with your employees? Let us know on the social medias. And Matt, we are going to wrap it up with our Parent of the Week award. So we're going to test out a segment at the end of this episode. We're talking about the Parent of the Week. And hopefully you can sense the sarcasm in my voice that this person is not getting a big trophy. They are getting, talked about here on DadChat. And this parent punches her son, dislocates the jaw after he refuses to stop playing Fortnite.
Yeah, man. Look, Chris Rock, I remember, did a bit about I would never kill a person, but I understand. And I think it was OJ, and this is tasteless and even talking about it. Like, I understand the desire to want to slap your kid or shake the hell out of them when they're just not doing something. But my God, to attack your own child, to punch him in the face, like, come on, lady. This is...
So she's 35 years old. 35-year-old mom hit her 10-year-old child closed fist in the bathroom, and she became angry because the child had failed to turn off his Fortnite game after being asked, and broke his jaw. And of course, they're from Florida. They're from like a half hour from where I am right now in South Daytona. Of course, this is a Florida mom who is knocking her son out for not playing Fortnite. Look, there's got to be a better way to end this. There's got to be a better way to get your kids to turn off. And ultimately, this is a parenting problem, not a kid playing Fortnite problem. It is figuring out a better way to deal with, your kid's not doing what they want to do. Look, Colton, all he wants to do is play baseball down the street with his friends. And I come down there and I'm like, hey, it's time to come home. And he doesn't want to come home. Like, Nate doesn't want to stop playing Legos to go into the bath or shower or whatever. But the way that you handle that speaks more to your parenting than the kid not wanting to stop doing the thing that he actually genuinely wants to do. Like, all kids don't want to go to bed. All kids don't want to stop playing video games. And so this is our parent of the week. And it's just bad news.
Yeah. So if your child is obsessed with Fortnite, let's definitely find better ways to help them. I think one of the best things I've ever heard about, how to, I think I read somewhere, it was like how to get kids to do what you ask them or to do the chores that you ask. Is I saw one story about a parent who basically changes the Wi-Fi password every day. And in order to get access to it, they have to do the tasks that are asked. So that was one way to kind of get them moving. And I have other parents who just turn off Wi-Fi altogether. So if your kids are not doing stuff, you can get creative in how to get them there. But yeah, let's avoid punching our kids in the face. That's just a general life hack that we're going to share today.
So for our parent of the week, we need to know, what should her punishment be? If you were the judge in this case and you saw a mom knock out her son, dislocate the jaw for not playing Fortnite, what is her punishment? The most creative punishment that you guys share with us on social media will get a special prize that we will announce next week on DadChat. Matt and I are working on some fun stuff, but we want to know, what punishment should our parent of the week get this week? This has been a really, really fun week. Lots happening. Let us know what you want us to be talking about. If there's stories that you run across between entrepreneurship, productivity, being a better dad, taking care of your kids, or just some viral dad stories, make sure you send them over to us so we can talk about them on a future. And if I can get my words out, this morning episode of Dad Chats. Matthew, you got any final words for us today?
Don't punch your kids in the face.
Ever. That's just bad. Bad idea. And let us know how your 4-day work week is going. If you're listening to this on the day it comes out, that's Thursday. That means you're taking tomorrow off. You go take tomorrow off, Dad. You deserved it. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week on another episode of Dad Chat.